Hi friends, and welcome back into my studio. If you are new here, my name is Tammy Ernest and I am a Longarm quilter. And here on my channel, I like to share customer finishes as well as my own personal projects. So I want to say thank you to everyone who has sent me emails or messages in the last week asking if we were okay through after the storms that went through Indiana last week. And yes, we are fine. Um, the actual tornadoes weren't close to us. I mean, within our close vicinity. We had a lot of wind. We did lose power for many hours into the late night, so we just went to bed. But we were okay. Now, two of my daughters. One lives about an hour northwest of me, and they did have tornado warnings in their area. Their phones and sirens were going off, so they don't have a basement. So they live in a parsonage, and they grabbed baby Ellie. I guess baby, she's 2 years old. They grabbed Ellie out of bed and had to run next door to the church so that they could take cover in the basement. But everything ended up fine there. And then I have another daughter that is south of Indianapolis, again about an hour from me, but in the other direction. And same thing there. Their phones and the tornado sirens were going off around them, so they had to grab baby out of bed again because this is happening, late at night, well past bedtime, and they had to hunker down in their bathroom for a while because that is the safest place in their home. So around us anyway, a lot of branches down, a lot of trees down. I've not heard of the tornadoes actually touching down close to my vicinity. But that's kind of par for the course here in Indiana in the springtime. We kind of deal with that quite a bit during this time of year. But thank you. I appreciate you thinking of us and your kind messages, hoping we were okay. And yes, we are. So wanted to share today things that I've been working on in my sewing room. I'll get to these in just a little bit. I have a couple quilt tops that are finished. They've not been quilted yet, but I'll share those with you in just a minute. But wanted to share Farm Girl. Let's start with this one. I have really, really, really been trying to prioritize some of my own personal quilting time. I miss that. And so I have really been trying to prioritize every morning. I've been getting up a half hour earlier than normal, and spending the first half hour in my sewing room prior to then starting Bible study and shower and all that kind of stuff that goes on in the morning. That first half hour really, when you first wake up and think, oh, I get to go sew, kind of a little bit more motivation to get out of bed, a little more motivation to go earlier to bed as well. So I have been spending every morning first half hour, and then I usually stay up late on Friday nights. I have to find sewing time when nobody else needs me. And so early morning, late on Friday night after my husband and Stephen have gone on to bed, I can have several hours of just uninterrupted time. Our weekends are always busy with family coming over, or we've got different events going on. So I don't always get much time on the weekends either. So I'm trying to grab those in-between times when nobody's needing me to prioritize some of my quilting, and I look forward to it. I absolutely look forward to it. So this is the Quilted Farm Girl. This is a quilt-along going on in the Fat Quarter Shop. This pattern is put out by It's So Emma, which is a division of the Fat Quarter Shop, but it's obviously a Lori Holt pattern. This has been such a fun quilt. So this started back February, March, around that time period, and I'm caught up on all my blocks. So I'll show you the new ones that I have finished today, but I thought it would be fun to just do a recap of everything we've done so far, because we are ready to start on the girl. And ooh, the chicken's gonna be fun, but we're ready to start on this part. So I thought it would be fun just to recap the blocks that I've done so far, and maybe it'll entice you to join, because it is such a cute quilt. It has really been a lot of fun to work on this one. So, well, maybe I'll just try to go in order so you can kind of see. Now, not that you have to go in the order of the pattern. Obviously, the quilt-along does. They've divided the pattern into 12 months. I don't know if I have the schedule here. Maybe 10, 12 months. I'm not exactly sure. I don't have the schedule from me. But that way you work through it at a pace that will get you done in a good amount of time, but not rush you. And so none of the blocks are super hard so far. But it's just doing that little bit at a time. But if you like the blocks that you see, maybe you can jump in and catch up and be a part of it. So the first blocks that we made were checkerboard blocks. I would say these were probably the most intense to begin with, just because these were smaller pieces and a lot of them. So let me just show them to you on my board here. There were, let me see how many we were making of these. 20, no, it says 24. Is that right? $26 total. So these were probably the most intense, but aren't they cute? I think they're adorable little pieces. So here are all of those, all 26 of them. They all use different background prints. I mean, they're repeated through many of them, but and a couple of the colored prints are repeated, but just all the pretty fabrics. So fun. And maybe it's better to start with the most intense little piecing first, and you get the hard part out of the way. And then as it's progressed through the quilt, we've been doing bigger and bigger blocks, which kind of spreads it out. That's a fun one. Fun print. So all of those pretty prints. So 26 of those finished at 3.5 inches right there. Then after the checkerboard blocks, we went on to the Farm Fresh blocks, and there were 4 of these. And this is what they look like. They had the pinwheel in the center, very cute blocks also. So 4 of those. And here's the 4th one. Fun, fun, fun blocks. All right, then we went on to the farmer's market blocks. And there were 3 of those. 1, 2, and 3. Very fun. Then I finished those at the beginning of May. I know that one was those were a little bit behind. I write in my pattern when I finished them, and so it's kind of fun to go back and look. Then we made 3 of the bee blocks. Now these weren't intense piecing except for the very tiny pieces around the head. But other than that, it wasn't too bad. So there's 1, 2, and 3. These are all exactly the same. The bee blocks, 3 of those. Then the next ones we made were the large flower blocks. And those, I'm going to bring out my bigger board because these were pretty big. And these are the ones that come up out of the canning jars up to, I mean, they're almost as tall as the Farm Girl, so. That's a pretty one. So cute. Love those big blocks there. Then after that, we made the leaf blocks. And there were 5 of these. These look like little pea pods or little pies. Oh, there's 2, 3, 4, and 5. Very cute. Then the next ones, were the canning jars. Let me make sure I didn't forget one in there. Yes, okay, so let me grab these and show you. I think I've shown you the first one. Okay. Pretty sure I showed you the tomato one when I finished that one. Here's the tomato one. So cute. And now the rest of these are blocks I have not shown you. So the next block was the other canning jar, and this has the pears in it. You can see just the beginning top of that stem. That stem goes all the way up, and then those leaf blocks come off of this longer stem, and then the flowers are at the top of them. So there is a little bit of embroidery that goes on here where you just hand embroidery where you stitch in the seeds right there. It was funny, the day that I finished this one, my girls we've got a girl chat, and they were talking about, I I think they were talking about their gardens is what it was. It's so fun to see them as they're getting married, having their babies, and now they're starting to get into gardening, and it's so funny because we did a farmer's, we did a market garden for a couple years. We grew pumpkins all those years, but then a couple years we got into growing vegetables and things for our local farmer's market, and we did that for 2 or 3 years. And man, I wore them out with gardening then. And I think some of them like said, I'll never do this. And now they're doing it. So it's fun. Only for their own families. They're not doing the huge amounts that we did. But anyway, they were all talking about their gardens. And I said, I put in the text, in the chat, I said, I canned some pears today. And they, what? Because I don't do much of that anymore. And I showed them my block. They thought that was pretty funny. So canning my pears, very fun. So those are the 2 canning jar blocks that go down at the bottom. You can see how those connect. There's the leaf blocks that come off of those and the flowers. You can see all those other blocks that we've done. Then this month for June, we did the warm welcome blocks, and there were 3 of these. So not hard at all. There's just 3. These finish at 6.5 inches. Now I did make a mistake in mine, but I decided not to go back and fix it. And I'll show it to you in just a second. The piecing itself is fine. What I messed up on is these little squares inside here were supposed to be of a different background print, and I had cut them. They were sitting right there on my design board. I had everything laid out on my design board. But what you do is you make this a 4 patch, and then you add the easy corner triangles to make those triangle shapes. And when I was doing the 4 patches, I was just zipping through, adding the colors to it, because all of these 2 have the same blue fabric. This one has a different blue fabric. But I was just zipping along, you know, string piecing them, just doing one right after the other. And I joined all of my 4 patches with the background print that goes over the entire background of the quilt instead of the other ones. And by the time I realized it, I'm like, I'm not going to change it. So I just left them. I don't know in the long run anybody's going to notice, but I'll always know, but it's not a big deal. So those are the warm welcome blocks. And so then I know I'm caught up. That's as far as for June. In July, we then begin on the farm girl head. That's where we start first, and then we start moving down her body, I think, pretty just, yep, onto her little shirt waist there. And so, yeah. So fun, fun, fun. I hope you'll join us. It's such a fun quilt. And actually when I showed the girls the pear block, I took a picture of the cover to show them what I was working on, and they're, oh, it's going to be such a cute quilt. So that one's a lot of fun. This does finish at 77 by 88. It'll look great on a guest bed or hanging up or on a little girl's twin bed maybe. I mean, it'll be a really cute one. All right, the other thing I have been working on is inside Quilt Circle. We have started another quilt along. We did, I gathered ideas from everybody, and we did a vote to narrow it down, because we had like 50 different ideas of quilts that we might work on the pattern, and then everybody chooses their own fabrics. So we narrowed it down to about 6, and then we did a final vote. So I called it a primary vote, and then the general election. And so we decided on, the majority went with this cover quilt on the Creative Log Cabins book. Now there are lots of different patterns in this, all doing some variation of log cabin blocks. And this has been very fun. Everybody has chosen different fabrics. Some are doing scrappy, some are doing where they've using a curated fabric bundle or something. We have some doing the cover fabrics. They happen to have those. But it's been so fun to do. It's been a learning experience for some that have never made log cabin blocks before. And but others are just whipping it out. So it has been a lot of fun. June is our first month. This first month we're just making 1 block, and then each months after this we'll be making 2. There's a total of 9 larger blocks. Let me show you the the bigger picture. Maybe you can see it from here. So one block. So it's one block, and you can see it right here. And I'll show you my first one here in just a second, but it consists of 4 log cabin blocks, kind of a modified log cabin because you only build the log cabin around 2 sides of it. And then this quilt actually has 4 courthouse steps blocks also, and then you put a house block in the center of that. Then this star is created with the sashing. So we won't even do that until the very end. But let me show you mine. I am using some reproductions. I am part of the Fat Quarter Shop's, I've never said this before, but I am part of the Fat Quarter Shop's reproduction club. What do they call it? Reproduction Fabric Club? I don't know. So each month I get a packet in the mail that has reproduction fabrics in it from a current line, a current reproduction line. And I love the colorways, and I've just been stowing them away. Some of them are 30s prints. Some of them are like this. These are all Kim Deal. This is 2 different fabric lines from Kim Deal. It just depends. Each month it's a little bit different. So that's what I picked out, was 2 of the Fat Quarter bundles that I have received in that club. Then I did pick a background fabric. This is a Kim Deal fabric also. I'll link it down below because I don't remember what it is. This print here comes in this colorway where it has the taupe and the blue in it, and then there's another colorway that just has the taupey, the brownish color. Then this in my log cabin blocks, this goldish color, that is a fabric that I had on hand. And then, so I have the 2 Fat Quarter bundles that I'm using to create all the courthouse steps and the houses in the center. All my houses will be different colors. So this is 1 block that we're making. We make 9 of these total, and then you put it together with the sashing to create the bigger quilt. But inside 1 block, we're making 4 of the courthouse or the log cabin blocks. And notice how these are a little different because you start with the center square, but then we're only adding it on 2 sides instead of a typical log cabin where you'd add it around all 4 sides. So we're making 4 of those. And then 4 courthouse steps blocks. These are so fun. I enjoy. I think this is the very first time I've ever made courthouse steps. I've made log cabins in the past, but this is a fun block to do. And then the house is in the center. And so I have cut all of my scrappy ones, the reproduction prints that you're seeing here. I've got all of that cut because I'm just picking out different ones and putting them in different combinations as I'm doing those 4 blocks. The rest of this I am cutting as I go because I get bored with cutting. So I've only been cutting the amounts that I need, and then that gets me sewing faster. So I like that. But fun. It has been, like I said, a joy. I love it. If you can be a part of a quilt along where you all where you all are making the same pattern, and to see the personalities come out in the fabric choices that each one does is such a fun part. And I just love it that each person makes it their own. Some are not even doing the houses in the center. Some are changing that block. This is, I believe, a 6.5-inch block, so they're changing that out to something else. I'm a little partial to houses, and so I like that in the center. But this quilt is called Hearth and Home, and that is in that Creative Log Cabins quilt book. But there are lots of other log cabin projects in this book also. Some just different variations of log cabins. So very fun book. And I did decide to jump on the Cora Yoder block of the month, her free block of the month, and I've got the first block about together. It started, what, February, March, April, May, maybe March. And so hopefully next week I'll be able to share some with you. I'm trying to get caught up to that. I've been, again, seeing everybody's blocks. I'm like, FOMO, I don't want to miss out on this one. And so I'm actually using some fabric that I received in a Sew Sampler box, so I'll share that with you next week. The other thing I have to share today is this quilt. So this quilt is the personal library quilt. This is done by Crimson Tate, the pattern is. And I mentioned a while back that several years ago, many years ago, oh my goodness, it's when my kids were all home and all young, and my husband stayed home one day and watched the kids While I traveled up to like northwestern Indiana, every year they do a one-stop shop hop. And all of the quilt stores come together in like a convention center. And so you go, it's a 2-day event. You go and you just get to walk through and buy and walk and buy, and that's what. So anyway, I came down an aisle, and Crimson Tate had a booth. I'd never heard of Crimson Tate. Actually, she's local to me. She's in Indianapolis. But she had a booth, and it had all of her book fabric, and I fell in love. It had this pattern, which is her colorways, the purple and the blue, and all of the book prints and the old library cards. And I'm like, I fell in love. I bought Fat Quarter Bundle, I bought yardage, I bought the pattern, I bought it all. And then in 2020, when my two of my girls graduated, this is what they wanted for the graduation gifts. And so Maggie's we finished up a couple years ago when she was still home, right before she got married. We finished hers up. Emily got married about 6 months prior to Maggie, and we had never finished Emily's. If you remember Maggie's was done in the greens and the taupes, the deeper colors. Emily is a pink girl, so she did all of hers in the pink. And I'll pull this in close in just a second. I'll also add some other pictures. What they did with their book quilts is, because this was a graduation project or a gift, but project as well, they took all of the books their favorite books that they had read over their childhood, high school time frame, and they put them on the spines of the books. Now their grandma, my mom, had an embroidery machine, and so some of the titles she actually embroidered on the fabrics for them. They would make the square. Each one of these is made of a different block, and then you can do different choices of the types of blocks that you want, and all of that instructions is in the book. So she gives you, let me see, well here is Maggie's. I think this was Maggie's. But what they did is they copied the pattern. So this is block A, B, C, D, E, F, and then they moved them around. Okay, so you can kind of see in here, this is all one print. They printed this out of the pattern, and this is block A, B, C, D, E, and F. And so each one of these is a different block pattern that's in the book. And then you don't want to just repeat the same thing, because then all your blocks, so all of these would be turned horizontal. You don't want to do the same thing in each row, because then these blocks would be horizontal, and it just wouldn't look right. So then they moved things around. So this one starts with F, F, E, D, C, B, A, so those go the other direction. Here they pieced different ones together, so she cut it apart and moved some of those down and had it this. So this was their whole grid. And so this showed them which blocks they needed to make. And then you can even see some of the names written on some of these. So they would make the block, and then they would give that to my mom, and she would do the embroidery of the ones that they wanted embroidered on there. And then other ones, they actually hand stitched the names on it. So it's so fun. Now you can do this other ways. You could just write them on there with a fabric marker, something that would stay on there permanently. They really wanted theirs stitched in, so I don't believe any of them are written in. Now what they might have done is the ones that they were hand embroidering, they would write it on there like in a pencil, very light pencil, so that they had a way to follow those on their stitching. So let me pull this in. This is a nice twin size quilt, and we did add a border around the outside edge, and this was a fabric that I had in my stash. All of this others we had actually shopped for back in 2020, or maybe even prior to that, and then put it all together. So this block here, you can see it's all of the Anne books. Anne of Ingleside, Rainbow Valley, Rilla of Ingleside, Annie's House of Dreams, Anne of Windy Poplars, Anne of the Island, Anne of Avonlea, and Anne of Green Gables. Now, a couple of those are embroidered, where my mom did it on the machine. A couple of those are hand-stitched. Very nice job. More in a cursive script there, so they did all of them different. My mom did a great job doing the embroidery. She used different colors on the spines, different fonts on the spines, which is really fun. Let me see what else I can find. Now, not all of the books have titles on them. It could be something that if the girls wanted to go back later and add more, but I think this is kind of just a history. So notice this one says Measure of a Heart, and then this one says Echo. If you've never read Echo, Echo's a great book to listen to on audio. It's really, really good. Let me see what else I can find. Heidi is on that one. And notice these books are horizontal. Ben-Hur is on that one. Little Women, Sense and Sensibility. So cute. What a history. An Old-Fashioned Girl is on this one. And number one spot, top of her bookshelf, right there, says the Holy Bible. I really like that. Silas Marner is on here. What else do we have? It's hard for me to read it upside down. Silas Marner, Kisses from Katie, The Dean's Watch, Tale of Desperado. So some of them are, smaller books. Some of them are long chapter books. Book Girl, if you've ever read by Sally and Sarah Clarkson, that's a great book. Life Giving Home, that's also a Clarkson book. Time Began in a Garden, Emily Barnes. Okay, so this is special. Emily Barnes. Emily Barnes was a Christian author that I followed religiously, no pun intended, when I was first married. She is who I learned homemaking from, in a sense of decorating and being purposeful in creating a pleasing home and decorating and having special times with your kids. I mean, I loved Emily Barnes and learned a lot about organization, and I found her on, I was listening to, this is back when you had radio, when you listened to the radio. I was driving to my sister's house, and sorry if I've told this story before. I was driving to my sister's house, and I had our oldest daughter in the back. Our oldest son was at school. Oldest daughter was in the back, and I was babysitting a little boy that was the same age as my oldest daughter. And we were driving to my sister's house, and I had Christian radio on, but they always had talk show type of things in the, around lunchtime time frame. And I was listening to a program, and they were interviewing Emily Barnes, and I pulled off in a parking lot to take notes because she was talking about how you had these numbered boxes up in the attic, and you had a file system so you knew what was in each box. The boxes were numbered, your cards were numbered, so if you were looking for something, you didn't send your husband up there to look through every box. It's like you'd pull your little card out, you knew what was in each box, and I would say, I need box 14 or whatever. All the Christmas decorations were labeled in boxes 25A, 25B. I mean, I pulled off and started taking notes. I ordered her book. I mean, I loved Emily Barnes. So one of the things that connected me with Emily Barnes is that her name, Emily, was spelled with an I-E. Well, my name, Tammy, is spelled with an I-E, which is unusual. Not as many people have it spelled that way. And so I've named all of the girls with names that ended in I-E. So Emily, my Emily, is actually named after Emily Barnes. Because I just always loved that her name was spelled with an I-E. So that one's special. Anyway, sorry, that was a long story. Elsie Dinsmore, this is just, it's so fun. It's so fun to see all the history that's here. But anyway, this is Emily's book quilt. And Emily actually did most of the sewing on that. So besides the hand embroidery that she did, when I think when we first did the blocks, they would cut, or I can kind of remember them sitting on the floor and handing me the pieces, and I would stitch them. They'd hand me the next one, I would stitch them. But the finishing up of this, Emily actually did. She was over one weekend when her husband was out of town, and I pinned and she stitched, and it was just a grand time. We really enjoyed it. So this is ready to go on the long arm. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to quilt it. Maggie's I did with the bookmarks pantograph, which is done by Longarm League, and I think it's Longarm League, and I really like that one. I think Emily's going to want something different, so trying to figure out how to stitch that. But so excited to have that one finally done. We bought a backing for this. Wow, we visited Missouri Star several years ago and picked out a backing for it. It's a A plusher, I guess it's a Minky. I'm really not sure. When we bought it, I was brand new to Minky and didn't really realize what it was. But it's a little plusher. It does have, it's like a white cream, but then it has roses on there too that are done in this same deep pink magenta kind of color. So it'll be very pretty. So, all right, that is Emily's quilt, my Scrappy Americana. It's all done. It's all done. Now, I haven't quilted it again either, and I've shown you this several times, but this is Scrappy Americana and another Lori Holt pattern, and I am so excited to have this one finished. This one, I've shown it to you several times, I think, as I've worked on different parts, and it's so big that I'm not sure I can even do it justice, but 50 stars in the union. It has all 13 stripes, red and white, and all of the red and white blocks are pieced blocks. Super fun. This is still available. I'm sure it's available as a kit too as well, but obviously the pattern is still available. If you're not wanting to buy the kit, this uses Lori Holt's Americana line. Is that what it's called? Americana? Scrappy Americana. I don't even see where it says. Yeah, yeah, I think it's called Scrappy Americana. That's terrible. Features the Americana collection by Lori Holt. Okay, the quilt is called Scrappy Americana flag, and then the fabric line is Americana. If you're not wanting to use her fabric line, if you've got reds and blues, Scrappy, you could do this one. Whatever you have in your stash, you could finish this one up. But very cute. I would like to get this on the Longarm soon. We'll see if that happens. Because just a lot of stuff going on right now. I will be this weekend at the Threadworks Fair in New Harmony, Indiana, down by Evansville, southern west tip of Indiana. In New Harmony, they're doing a Threadworks Fair, and this is actually cross-stitch. I'm so excited. They have classes going on, they have exhibits going on, they have a vendor mall. Teresa Koget's going to be there, and she's introducing some exclusive patterns this weekend. So that's where I'll be this weekend. If you're in the area, hope you'll join us. Come over and say hi if you see me there. But I'm excited to be doing that. And then it's just a busy month. I'm sure, like you, just a busy month. So I'm hoping to get this long-armed, but customer quilts always come first, so we'll see. But that's what I've been working on, and so I can't wait to share more of it, more of my stuff next week. And next week I'll be sharing also the Liberty Box. I just received that in the mail, so that'll be exciting to unbox that for you next week. Some really cool stuff in there. So, all right, let's move on to customer quilts for today. Sally's quilt measures 93 by 93, and she says she made this up as she went along. She used 2 jelly rolls of Lookout. That is a Jen Kingwell fabric line. And she also used black jelly roll strips, and that's what is around the outside of each block. So instead of sashing, she has actually pieced the black around each of the blocks and then joined those blocks together. So that's what you're seeing there. And the Lookout line is by Jen Kingwell, as I said, and that is done for Moda. So Sally did say that this was her first time using the strip tube ruler, and here is what that tool looks like. So this tool is used to make half square triangle units from 1 to 9.5 inches. It says it's perfect to be used for 2.5-inch strips, which are jelly rolls, which is what Sally used. So if you notice in the block construction, you can see this one right here. It's actually 2 half square triangles put together. So here is one with the orange and then the stripe and then the orange and white leaf print. Here is a second one with the white with purple polka dots, the yellow, and then this smaller print here. So those are 2 units put together. So then you have 8 units total in one block. Let's look at this one here also. So here is 1/4 of the block, and it has 2 of the half square triangle units. Here it has 2, here's 2, here's 2. When you put the 4 blocks together, then you get the secondary pattern of the half square or the 1/4 square triangle unit in the center. And just a great fabric line for color and for bang and pop. It's just beautiful. Now, Sally said she did add the black sashing because putting all of those together side by side was a little too much. So another way to get a similar look to this block would be to do a string block. Now, a string block is a little different. Let's say that this 4th of this triangle would be this one. A string block, you would start with a center piece and you would stitch that on some sort of a backing fabric. Either some people use interfacing, some people use batting. You can even use foundation paper, and you start with a center piece, and then you would lay a second strip on top of that one, stitch your 1/4 inch, and then press that back, and you continue to do that until you get your square shape, and then you could trim it up to that size. That would be a different way to do a very similar block if you're interested in string quilts. Sometimes string quilts can be done you can do it with all the same widths of fabric, or you can do it where you have differing widths, so it's a great scrap buster also. So I like that Sally is challenging herself and using new tools. Perhaps you've got rulers and tools in your sewing room that you need to learn to do as well, and pull it out. Find your great fabric line and pull out those tools and put together, and you can have something beautiful like Sally did. Let me show you how she did her borders on this one. Notice in this bottom, it's all black. But then on 2 corners, on the opposite corners, she has added a colored border. And look at this. This is so, so cute. So just using leftover strips, these are probably about 5 inches, 6 inches long. They're the 2.5 inches wide. And no, I'm looking at this. That is some sort of a print. I'm thinking these are leftover. Look at this print. These are all one long strip. I'll have to look at this fabric line and see how those are done, because you can see the line here, the black line with the little white stitches. That is one long piece of fabric right there. And then she has stitched it in the corner here, but that whole strip is one piece. Interesting. So when I got in closer, then I saw that. I thought she had pieced together all of that. But what I was going to say is it's only in 2 of the corners, so opposite corners. So this bottom right and the top left, that's how she has framed it. And then the rest of it is all done in black around the other parts. And then that's like 3 borders. So instead of this being that colored border, it is just another strip of black is the way that is done. Very fun. All right, the backing fabric. This one is called, this is Needle and Thread by Studio E. Here's what the selvage looks like. So just a meander print. You see the needles in there. You can see the stitch lines all over. This was a wide backing. You can just see all of that. What a busy backing. I like the black. I like the black with the white. We've got solid black on the front, but then keeping it on the back, keeping that black on the back, but then with that meander, it kind of lightens it up a little bit. That's very fun. All right, for the pantograph on this one, Sally asked for cinema, and this is what cinema looks like. So I had sent her several choices, and this being one of them. And the reason I picked this one out, it does have the circles in there, where you can see in a lot of this fabric, there are a lot of circles, polka dots in the fabrics. And then it also has the diagonal, which is very similar to the diagonal on in her blocks here. Now, one of the things I did make sure is that this angle of this diagonal was the same as the angle in her fabrics. If this angle would have been more, a little more horizontal and not quite such a diagonal, it would have not matched up well with her piecing. Because if we change the angle of, right here, the pantograph is the same angle as the strips that she has done. If that was off a little bit, if it was more of a horizontal or more of a vertical diagonal, it really would have clashed with the whole piecing of this one. So the diagonal of the angle of these diagonals is the same as the piecing that she has done in her quilt, and so we thought that matched very nicely. Now she did ask for black thread. She wanted the pantograph to blend into the black sashing that was around each one of those blocks, and then because of the busyness of the fabric, even from here you really don't see the color, but it is a black. We did black in the top and in the bobbin. Now notice with this pantograph, there is a pretty straight line that also happens, and notice in the pantograph again. And there is a pretty straight line there, and that is all in the stitch line. That's what's creating that. That's a travel line. And so it does create that. I think that for this one was fine. It kind of added in a secondary dimension, but you want to make sure if this is a pantograph that you're choosing, that horizontal line is not going to detract from what you're trying to stitch. So you can see the black thread, but all of the fabrics all have a lot of black in them. See black stripes in this one, black outlining of the circles in this one, black speckles in this one. There is a lot of black in the colored fabrics anyway, so the black blended nicely with that. But then that leaves the sashing to be totally black, and you're not losing the whole design of the quilt by having that black. It really just gives your eye a place to rest as you're looking at all the beauty in the quilt. So that is Sally's quilt. I have several quilts from Cammy, and we're going to start with this one that is called Night and Day. This is a free PDF on the Fat Quarter Shop website. So there's what the pattern cover looks like. Now this one is done in, it says the fabric line is Floral Fantasy Artesian Batiks. And so notice all the different colors in this one, oranges and yellows and blues and greens. And so that's what that one looks like. But Cammy has done hers all in blue and white, which I just love. This fabric line is called Water. That is a Ruby Star Society fabric line. Now, in looking at this block, let's look at this one. So you're basically doing a sawtooth star, but you're doing it one with the white star with the dark background, and then the second half of the block is the dark star with the lighter background. All of her background prints are the same. This is a tone on tone, so when you get in close, you can see that water kind of paisley look to this fabric. And the block size, probably 9 inches. Nope, this is 4 parts. So it wouldn't be 9 inches, and this is why I can tell. Actually, I have the pattern, but let me just look. Let me see what it finishes at. Finishes at 10 inches. So why would it not be a 9-inch block? I'll show you why I know right away that it's not a 9-inch block. Because if you look at this, it's a 4x4 grid. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 makes up the block. That is not easily divisible into 9. Okay, so I knew it had to be something else. And so this is a 10-inch block, which means each one of these would be 2.5-inch squares when they're finished. So just some quilty trivia there. That this could be an 8-inch block. I could have guessed that too. These would be finished at 2. Now, if this was a 3x3 grid, a 1, 2, 3, meaning all the same size. This can't count as 1 because it's a different size than this one is. But if it was a 3x3 grid, then it's very easy to get a 9-inch block or a 6-inch block, anything that's divisible by 3. So a 12-inch block, you could do that, but just a little quilty trivia there. So this is a 10-inch block when it's finished into the quilt. All of the information about how to create this is in the pattern. You're making flying geese units. No. Well, let me see. This one is a flying geese unit. This one is not. These are 2 half square triangle units. And the reason you have to do it that way is because the bottom, it switches color schemes, okay? Now, no, you couldn't do it. I'm thinking as I'm talking here. You could not do a flying geese unit because your background of this would be 2 different prints. There would not be a way to do that. So notice here in doing a flying geese unit, your background is the blue, and then you're adding the easy corner triangles on the sides to get those 2 points on that side for the white, okay? This one, we have 2 different colors here in what would be the background, and so you can't do a flying geese unit, but you can get the same effect using half square triangles. So if you're not a fan of flying geese units, know that you can always trade it out. As long as the sizing is correct, you can always trade it out for half square triangle units. I'm going to say always. I've not tested that theory, but in my thinking, you should always be able to, unless the block is an odd size that maybe it wouldn't work. I'll have to research that a little bit more. All right, so that is the night and day, meaning that you have the white star with a darker background and the dark star with the lighter background. That does alternate in each of the blocks that you're doing. So notice the one next to it, and you can't see the one next to it. Pull it in a little closer. So this one, can you see this one? No, let's go this way. So this one, and then this one has the dark star on the top and the white star on the bottom. So every other block we're switching that, and you're getting it back and forth. So a very fun quilt. This one finishes at 50 by 60 is the final size of it. So you're doing 5 stars across and 6 stars down, but obviously you can make it larger if you're wanting a larger quilt. If you're only wanting a wall hanging or a baby size crib quilt, you could do that even smaller, and you're just making less blocks is all that you're doing. And the instructions only give you the fabric requirements for the 50 by 60 size, but that is a free PDF that you can get off the Fat Quarter Shop website. And again, the fabric line on this one is Water by Ruby Star Society. So everything in it has some sort of water feature. So there are some fish, there are some waves. Even the grid that you're seeing here, if you can see that, it's more of a wavy grid. This is more like rippling water. There are some raindrops, some other ripple type things. There's a little bit of floral in it, some clouds, some fish, just kind of anything that has to do with water. So this one is just a blue with a black. This one has people. You have people at the water, right? And here's some clouds in this one. This one has some florals in it. So very rich blue colors in this one. For the backing fabric, Cammy asked for the royal blue minky, and I do carry this in my studio if you're wanting this on the back of a quilt, and works very, very nicely with the front of this one. So very, very pretty. And then, well, you can see the pantograph very nicely on the minky. This is Mini City of Fountains. Mini meaning M-I-N-I. Mini City of Fountains. So if you're thinking about, a city with lots of people, this is a city of fountains. And so it's got all of the, very similar to a Baptist fan type of look. Let me show you on the front. A Baptist fan, but it's a little more elongated vertically. So very fun though. Just a fun pantograph. I love using this pantograph on quilts that have houses in it too. It's just one of my favorite. So thread color on this one, we did go with a colored thread. I was having quite a bit of trouble with using a white thread with the blue minky popping through. I did use a warm and natural 80/20 batting in there. I did switch my needle to a smaller needle. I did switch to a thinner thread, and I still was having some pop throughs. And so talked to Cammy about it, and we just decided to go with a blue colored thread. I did a test spot, and she's like, yeah, I like the blue thread. So this is what we went with. This is an omni thread called Ocean Blue. Now, by going with a colored thread on the top that is the same color or very similar color to the minky on the back, if there are any pop throughs, which I'm sure there are, you're not going to see them because they are in the stitch line of the thread. And so that was how we worked around that whole issue. I did use blue in the bobbin also. I did purchase some blue pre-wound bobbins. These are done by Magnaglide. They're Magnaglide pre-wound bobbins. Am I saying that right? Magnaglide, Magna Core. I can't, I'll link it down below. They do have the magnetic core, which means that they hold nicely into the bobbin case and very little problem, and I love them. I just love that I'm using colored thread and getting some of the colored bobbins. It saves so much time just to pull these out, pop them in, know that the tension's good on them, most of them. I mean, occasionally you may get a bad bobbin, but I just really like working with the Magna Core. Magna. I can't think right now. So between the two, they're not exactly the same, but when they're on, this is on the back and this is on the front, you're not going to notice a difference. The tone of them is the same. So again, if there's any tension issues at all, the pop throughs are going to look very similar. They're not going to be enough different that you're going to see any difference on the top. All right, so let me pull this in so you can see that colored thread. Very pretty. I really liked it. And then on the minky on the back, you don't even see the thread color. All you see is texture on the back. So just a fun quilt. So whatever fabrics you're wanting, let me tell you the fabrics, what it uses. This used 15 fat quarters for this size, plus your background fabric. There is no border on this one. What you're seeing in the picture is just a blue binding on it. So there is no border on it. 15 fat quarters, and it looks like 2 1/4 yards of background print, and you can have a nice, cute quilt. So, Cammy's first quilt. And Cammy's second quilt that I did this time, this is the 'Tis the Season quilt panel by Lella Boutique from her line Christmas Eve. You may still be able to find this around, but this is not for the coming up Christmas. This was past Christmas. So this is a panel. And so Cammy didn't do anything with it. She just sent me the panel. It is a nice size. 58 by 73 is the size of this one. So you can get a very nice size quilt in just using the panel. If you wanted to add extra to get a larger one, maybe for a quilt, for a bed, something like that, you could obviously add borders or blocks around the edge so that you could get a bigger quilt if you're wanting to. But really just as is, just quilting the panel. So almost like a whole cloth quilt, not really, because you've got, picture decoration on the front of it, but very similar in that it's just a piece of yardage and we're just quilting that. So it does say 'Tis the season to be jolly, lots of nice artwork, big, large Christmas type of flowers, as well as snowflakes there. And then on the back, we did put the cactus minky on this one. I do carry this one in my studio here also. I like this color. I just really like the color. And I like the contrast between the red on the front and the green on the back. I do carry red minky as well, and you could have done that. I think it feels even more Christmassy by adding the green on the back, kind of doing a contrast. I don't always like to do the same thing on the back. And this was Cammy's choice in doing the cactus, and I just thought it was very, very nice. Now, again, we've got a colored minky on the back. This one is not so bad because we do have red on the front, so not a lot of white spots that you're going to see, any pop throughs. But what I did on this one was use the celery color, which I did not bring with me. Hold on just a second. So for the quilting on this one, I did use the So Fine color in celery. And then I do also have those celery in the pre-wound bobbins. These are called the Magna Glide Delights. Magna Glide. Okay, the other ones are called, the blue ones that I showed you earlier, Magna Glide. They are Magna Glide, but it's called Magna Glide Classics. And then these are Magna Glide Delights. The Delights only come in 10 to a jar like this. The Magna Glide Classics, I usually can get in a box of 100. I do believe these are a different weight. These are 40. Let me look at the others. Okay, I know you guys are yelling at me because I stumble over this every time I talk about it. The Magna Glide Delights are 40 weight. The Magna Glide Classics are 60 weight. Okay, so a little thicker in the 40 weight, but I love them both. I love the colors. I love using pre-wound bobbins. I love the magnetic core that's in the center. So that's what I used on this quilt, was the celery color. Now from a distance, I don't even think you can see it, but that really, again, helps with the pop throughs coming through because I'm using a similar color from the back, not exactly, but a similar color from the back as the thread color. Then any pop throughs that are coming through to the top are very minimally seen. You're just not going to notice them like you would if it was you know, a red on the back and I was using green thread or something, or using a white thread and it's pulling the green through to the top. Now, not so bad on this one, like I mentioned, because a lot of this is red. We're doing a similar tone, not similar colors, but similar tones between the greens and the reds. They're very similar, so you're not going to see as much pop through, but where you would see it would be any of the white lettering, the white flowers. If there was pop throughs, that's where you would really notice them if you were using a white thread. All right, let me bring this in. I will show you one of the flowers so maybe you can see the celery color on there. So a little more noticeable on the white, but I really don't even think from a distance you can see it too much. You're seeing more of the pantograph, not really till you get in close are you realizing you're seeing the pantograph because it is a colored thread. But then notice on the red, until you get in close, you're not seeing the color. But it just adds that Christmassy feel to it too by using the green. And then let me tell you about the pantograph. The pantograph on this one is called Holly Berry Holiday. Cammy had asked for something that had some holly in it, and so that is the pantograph that we used. So nice big swirl, and you can see the swirl is the backbone of where those holly berries and leaves are coming off of. So notice it's just one little touch point off of that spiral is where it then starts into the leaf and does the leaves and the berry, and then it comes back into the spiral, and then just one little touch point as it goes back out and does another leaf in a spiral, or another leaf in the berries. So you can just see just one little spot that it's coming off of that spiral, and then it's creating those. But that spiral is the travel line, but it's decorative. It's not just a meander stitch, which I really like. You're adding in the fanciness or the design of adding a spiral, but that's really your travel line to get from one holly leaf to the next, okay? So let me show you that on the quilt. I'll show it to you on the back. So the size of it fairly tight. I mean, my berries are only 2 or 3 inches from one leaf, one motif, you know, just a couple inches tall. Cammy does like hers fairly tight. So you can see the spiral in there and the leaves coming off of it. Just very rich. Just love it. All right, those are 2 of Cammy's quilts. Let me move on to a couple more. And this one is such a fun quilt. So again, we're doing sawtooth stars, but Cammy this time used the sawtooth, or used, let me find it. She used flying geese paper for this one. This is the 2x4 flying geese foundation paper that you can do, you can grab from Fat Quarter Shop. This comes in lots of different sizes, so whatever size of flying geese units that you're needing to do, you can find the paper for that. So notice these blocks. They're so fun. So the star is made from the same fabric. That is consistent throughout the entire thing. And it's white with little pink polka dots. But then she has used all different fabrics and combined them in kind of a color wash type of design. We start with pinks, purples, this way. You can see the oranges coming down in a diagonal, pinks in a diagonal, the purples in a diagonal, the blues, then the greens, the yellows, and orange up there at the top. So kind of a color wash, and then the way that it's moving across the quilt. The stars are all the same fabric, but then the fabrics behind are all ones from her stash. And it's not going to take that much. You need your flying geese. Start with the background fabric, and then your white would be your half square triangles. No. It would be the easy corner triangles that you're adding on if you're doing them in the traditional way. Otherwise, you're making them with the flying geese paper where you're adding them in that way. So the colored fabric is the background. It's the base, and then the white is on the top. But look at that. How fun is that? So 2x4, so this is 4 inches. So these are 2. That means this finishes at an 8-inch block. So just using your scraps, I think this is a great, great quilt. It's just so gorgeous, so pretty, so fun, and a nice child's quilt. So here, here is the backing. For the backing, she asked for the Shannon Cuddle in the baby pink color. I do carry this in my studio here also, and that shows off the pantograph. It is like the perfect finish to a child's quilt like this. This is Rainbow Hearts, and I love this pantograph. It is such a pretty one on the back of the quilt, especially with the pink minky. And here is what that one looks like. Rainbow Hearts, very similar to a Baptist fan. You really only have the 2 fan things that are in each motif. The third one is created with the bottom row of the row above it. And notice this is not meant to come all the way down. If you came all the way down, then this line would be stitching right on top of this line. It is meant to be up here, meant to leave that space right there, and then that third fan shape is created by the bottom line of that. It is not meant to be squished all the way down. Done by Intelligent Quilting, and I do link all the pantographs down below. Those will take you right to the websites if you're wanting to purchase those for your own, or just to pass on to your own long arm quilter and tell her, him or her, which design that you are liking. So on the front here, you can see we use the Omni Natural White thread. Blends very nicely with the white backgrounds or the white stars that are shining there. And again, it's all different types of fabrics. I can see some Tula Pink in here. That's one I recognize. Others, I think this is a Lori Holt print. Other polka dots, and this is a Lori Holt also. So all different kinds, some Tula Pink down there. So it all works together. You know, it all works together when you do in a block like this. And obviously you can make this large or small, whatever way you want to make your sawtooth stars, and you're just making as many as you want. You can do it in the color wash or color gradation, the way Cammy has done it, but just a fun, fun quilt and a great use of scraps. Cammy has also used foundation paper to create this quilt. This time she used the 12-inch log cabin foundation paper. And how many come? It says this is fantastic for 2.5-inch strip pre-cuts or scraps. There are 42 sheets on each pad, so depending on how many blocks you want to make. This is the 12-inch size, as I said. And so Cammy has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 across and 6 down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down. So 5 by 6 is how many she's doing, which would be 5 by 6 would be 30. So she probably has some sheets left over. I love this. This is all scraps, and it's all, instead of the typical log cabin where we have a colored center, we have lights on one side, darks on the other. She has used all basically tone on tone, not tone on tone. They're white backgrounds with just a little bit of color. So some of them pretzels, you know, or some Lori Holt looks like some fabrics there. Some of them have wording, some of them have stars, some of them have buttons or circles. It's just all of those light prints. Now she did say she used a mix of Hush Hush, which is done by Riley Blake, and also scraps that she had. And let me bring it in close so that you can see some of those. It's just, I mean, so you've got the log cabin, and you really got to get in close to see the log cabin, but it's really just providing a lot of texture, a lot of, because you're not seeing the block. It's not just a you know, very bold block like some of the log cabins can be, where you really got a big distinction between the colors and the light side. So here it's just very subtle, but it's adding a nice mixture of all those different fabrics, and it just makes a very pleasing quilt. But you can see the different colors. You got some blue in here, some pink and blue, some brown, some grays. Here's more of some lighter blue, some strawberries in this one, some red and pink lines in this one, just all different ones. Here's some Lori Holt chick fabric in that one. So just, it works so nicely together. Such a great job. All right, on the backing fabric, this is a wide backing. This is one of Lori Holt's wide backings from her Calico series. This one is in the alpine color, but it also comes in coral, which is more of a pinky, orangey color, and then also in milk can, which is more of your taupey gray color. So this is a fun backing because there's so much interest into it as well. So has the days of the week, has it in cursive, has the months of the year, Dolly's weekdays, what she did on each day of the week, has a calendar on here also, 1963 calendar. But it's just a fun print to look at. I love the cursive on there. Reminds me, did you learn cursive in school? I did. Love it. All right, so the pantograph on this one, we went with something swirly. She asked for some, and that softens the quilt up. So we went with basic swirl on this one. And this is what basic swirl looks like. So the reason that she had written down two, she had written down Modern Swirls, which is a very tight, dense pantograph, and she'd also written down Basic Swirl. Now, what made me decide between the two was that she had put in her density scale, she said a 3. Now, Modern Swirls, there is no way to do that at a density of 3, meaning on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being very open, very big, very little, not dense at all, okay? 5 being very dense, very tight quilting, and so she had 3 right in the middle. That Modern Swirls pantograph, and I should have brought it, but I didn't, is a very dense pantograph, and the sizing of it, there is no way to make it even bigger to get even more spaces. And so I felt between the two that the Basic Swirl was really the best one. It's going to provide more open spacing. The size of this one is bigger around than the end of my fist, to get that size 3 and kind of what I am assuming that she wanted. So a lot more space in between the spirals themselves, more than my finger width apart are the spirals. Then about that same distance in between the pantograph. I always like when I shrink up my rows to have the spacing between the rows to be very similar to the spacing in the row, in the pantograph itself. So notice here the spacing that's in the pantograph is about the width of my finger, maybe a little bit more. And then here is the top of that row and the bottom of the other one. And again, I want my spacing between there to be about the same spacing. So again, it's about the finger width apart. And that's what gives you a very cohesive look of pantograph all the way down your quilt. If we separate that out and have a huge amount of space in here, then it's very noticeable where the different lines are. And so that's why I shrink it up the way I do. And just closing up that gap is really all I'm doing. And so this is the Omni Natural White thread also, all the white fabrics. So you're getting lots of nice texture on there. Very fun. I just love, I loved it. Very cute. And another cute quilt from Cammy. This one is a table topper, and this is called the Ohio Star Table Topper. This is actually in Lori Holt's book, Prairie Home. So her book that has all the prairie themes, it's done by seasons, and just taking one of those stars in there, the Ohio Star Table Topper, and making it for her bedroom, she said. So you do have a square and a square in the center section here. That is not piece. That center section is one big piece. So you are adding easy corner triangles in the pink plaid. Then the fabric in the center is white with the little pink flowers. And then she has used that for the star points. These are half square triangle blocks. They are not flying geese units. And that's where I was saying earlier, you know, it looks like a flying geese unit, but in this size, it's much easier to do half square triangles than it is to do a flying geese unit. And then blue around on the outside for the borders, and then blue for the border as well. So you can see this one. Pretty fabric. Then on the backing, it is that same white with the pink flowers on it. And that shows off the pantograph very nicely. And so Cammy said she wanted something with bows. And so I went searching for some. This one is on the So Shabby Pantos. So Shabby Pantos, I think, is where it was at. This is called Bow Clams. So you have that bow shaped with just one clam shape over the top. Like how the bow is echoed around. So it's almost like a 3D type of effect there. Very pretty. So you can see that on the backing. Used Omni Natural White thread. And here it is on the front. So cute. Such a cute one. And the size of this one measures 36 by 36 is the size star. Obviously, you could make it in whatever colors would match your decor in your home, but I'm sure it was a super easy and quick stitch up. So great gift also if you're wanting to give a gift for somebody. So a wall hanging. Very cute, Cammy. And Cammy's last quilt here is very special. This one was actually made by her mother, and her mother passed away recently, and so Cammy is trying to finish some of her works in progress that she had. So she said, this is Lakeside Gathering, and that is done by Primitive Gatherings. That line is a couple years old, so you may not be able to find that, but this is in the flannels. So all of the Primitive Gathering flannels are so nice. Just a very high quality flannel. It's very nice to work with. So this is the Lakeside Gathering. So you have your blues and your browns. You have your brown plaid in there also around as the border. And then the inside is just 5-inch squares just added together. Quilting does not have to be hard. It doesn't have to be hard. Beautiful quilt the way it's put together and laid out, and you're seeing all those pretty fabrics. And then the backing, let me show you this, because the backing had some piece blocks also, and Cammy said she found this in her mom's whip, so she used it as the backing. And then she just added some extra. So actually the blue flannels on this one are offset with then more of that fabric from the front than is added on the side. So a cute, cute thing. All right, and then for the pantograph on this one, we went with diagonal plaid bias cut, and that's what this one looks like. Actually stitches out like this direction, I think. Bias cut because the corners are rounded. There is a diagonal plaid that's got the sharp corners. There's also a diagonal plaid hexes, which is a fun one to use. But this is diagonal plaid bias cut. Great texture. I mean, I love this on t-shirt quilts. I love this on any manly quilts. I mean, it works on so many things. Did this on a bunny hill fabric, you know, not too long ago, and so it was really cute too. So now this one, I did use the beige color thread, and here is beige. This is 3068, and let me compare that to the cream color. Here's cream. I felt like with the colors of the taupes in here and even the border fabric, that the beige, the 3068, matched that better. Not that cream was bad, really. I mean, you could use cream and it's not going to cause a problem. If all you have is the cream, I think cream would be the way to go with this one. If you're wanting to expand the colors that you have, I mentioned before that the three basic ones that I would stick with are the cream, the light gray, and the natural white. I do not like the bright white, but the natural white. Then if you want to go into more colors after that, adding a medium gray is nice for some of your darker colors, but then adding some of these shades that are just a shade darker than the cream, kind of, you know, not even, I was going to say between the cream and the white. They're not that. They're the other side of the cream. Because it's adding, going more towards the brown color, but a beige is just a very pretty color, and I thought it matched very nicely together. Really kept the tone of the quilt to be the focus on the fabrics and not brightening it up with a cream color. So you can see how that blended in nicely with those border fabrics. So pretty. So pretty. I know Cammy's going to enjoy this one, knowing that her mom put it together and stuff. So very good, Cammy. Enjoyed every one of your quilt tops. They're all just beautiful. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have a wonderful week. Good weather where you are. You're enjoying the summertime. Hope you're making lots of time to quilt. Until next week, every quilt is worth finishing. We'll see you then.